queen's origins. Who was Cleopatra? Cleopatra. The name alone evokes a cascade of associations. Beauty, power, splendor, romance, betrayal, tragedy. And who was she really? Merely a femme fatale who captured the hearts of two powerful Roman men, or a political genius unfairly buried in the dusty margins of history? Her full name was Cleopatra VII, Thea Philopater, which means the goddess who loves her father. Even this title suggests she was seen not just as a woman, but as a ruler imbued with divine qualities. She was the last and most famous monarch of Egypt's final Hellenistic dynasty, the Ptolemaic dynasty. And here's the twist. Cleopatra was not ethnically Egyptian. She was Greek. The Ptolemaic dynasty was founded after the death of Alexander the Great by one of his generals, Ptolemy I Soter. This lineage ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years, maintaining their own Greek customs. They spoke Greek, kept their distance from the native Egyptian population, and often married within the family, frequently siblings, to preserve their pure bloodline. But Cleopatra broke that tradition in significant ways. She spoke not only Greek, but also Egyptian, along with 7 other languages, making her fluent in a total of 9. This made her the first Ptolemaic ruler capable of communicating directly with her subjects. In Egyptian belief, the pharaoh was not just a ruler, but also a living god. Cleopatra understood this and used it to her advantage. She presented herself as the earthly embodiment of the goddess Isis. Her political leadership, reinforced through religious symbolism, reveals her not only as an intelligent strategist, but also as a master of public perception. So how did Cleopatra ascend to the throne? When her father, Ptolemy XII, died, Cleopatra was only 18 years old and was co-declared ruler alongside her 10-year-old brother. But palace intrigue, economic instability, and external pressures, especially from an increasingly powerful Rome, thrust her into an ongoing struggle for survival. Her conflict with her brother over the throne demanded not only leadership skills, but also extraordinary resilience and adaptability. To ask, who was Cleopatra, is not just a biographical question. It's also a deeper inquiry into how female rulers have been portrayed throughout history. When we ask who she was, we must also ask, why is she remembered this way? And by whose standards is she being defined? As a monarch, Cleopatra was charismatic, cunning, and, when necessary, ruthless. Yet she was also deeply connected with her people, skilled in religious and cultural diplomacy, and able to cross the boundaries of identity and expectation. She held power not because of her beauty, but because of her complexity. Cleopatra was not merely a queen, she was a narrative. At times, enchanting, at times threatening, but always powerful. And that's precisely why understanding Cleopatra sheds light not only on the past, but also on the present. Her story is a key to understanding how history is written and how female power is remembered, reshaped, or sometimes deliberately misunderstood. The birth of a myth, a queen enchanting with her beauty. A journey behind the legend. The year is 48 BCE. The darkness of the night reflects on the waters of the Nile. In the dim corridors of the royal palace, everyone is uneasy. Whispers spread like wildfire news from Rome has arrived. Julius Caesar is now in Egypt, and within the palace walls, the balance of power hangs by a thread. It is on this very night that a plan is set into motion. Cleopatra wraps herself in a carpet to sneak into the palace. Yes, you heard that right. The Queen of Egypt is smuggled into the presence of the most powerful man in Rome, rolled up in a rug. Picture the moment. The carpet is unrolled, and out steps a young woman. Her clothes are modest, yet elegant. Her eyes, sharp even in the shadows. Then she speaks with resolve in her voice. and intelligence in her words, she captivates Caesar. From that night forward, the course of history changes. This scene has been told and retold for centuries. But over time, something happened. Cleopatra's intelligence faded into the background, and the stage was left to her so-called beauty. But why? It's true that Cleopatra was an impressive woman, but not because of her looks. Ancient historians, especially Roman ones, focused more on her physical charm than her political maneuvers. And that suited them. After Caesar's death, Augustus portrayed Cleopatra to the Roman public as a threat, a woman and a foreigner. Intelligent but cunning, powerful but dangerous. And the easiest way to discredit her, reduce her to just a woman, just beautiful, just seductive. Centuries passed. Cleopatra moved out of the history books and into the paintings, stages, and films. In the 1963 film Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor sits on her gilded throne, and the world stares into her eyes. But no one asks how she ruled a kingdom, how she negotiated with Rome, how she integrated herself with her people's culture. And yet, Cleopatra was the first Ptolemaic queen to speak the Egyptian language. Not only a ruler, but a strategist. She understood Rome, and she knew how to steer it to serve her own interests. This was far more than a game of seduction. It was diplomatic chess. But the myth blurred the truth, because beauty is an easier story to tell. Visually striking, dramatic, romantic. Historians and artists alike love this version, because to respect the mind of a powerful woman means first acknowledging it, trying to understand it, and perhaps most uncomfortable of all, accepting it. But beauty, that can be decorated, displayed, and silenced. So now we must ask, did Cleopatra truly enchant with her beauty? Or did we reduce her to that beauty because we didn't want to see the brilliance of her mind? Perhaps she built the myth herself. Perhaps she strengthened her power by playing with perception. But what we do know is this. Her real magic wasn't what you saw, it was what you didn't. And maybe the reason we're still talking about her today isn't the beauty of her face, but the hidden force behind it. The power we still haven't fully unraveled. The mind behind the scene. Cleopatra's intelligence and strategies. When talking about Cleopatra, one thing is often overlooked. She was as powerful a ruler behind the scenes as she was in the spotlight. Countless stories have been told about her, her beauty, her romances, her dramatic death. But behind all of that lies a far more impressive truth. Cleopatra was one of the smartest and most strategic leaders in history. She didn't just rule an empire. She managed to balance two superpowers, Egypt and Rome. And she did it not only with sword, but with words, diplomacy, and intellect. The foundation of her intelligence. Multilingual, multifaceted, and multifaceted. Cleopatra's intelligence was not only strategic, but also intellectual. She is known to have spoken 9 different languages. Greek was her native tongue. But she was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language. Arabic, Ethiopian, Hebrew, Aramaic, Median. Each allowed her to communicate directly with different cultures, turning strangers into allies. This linguistic skill was not only a tool to connect with her people, but also a diplomatic asset. She was a leader who spoke directly with her own voice, not through diplomats. And her voice convinced not only through words, but through tone, emphasis, and meaning. The chess pieces, Caesar and Antony. When Cleopatra allied with Julius Caesar, Rome was in civil war. Gaining Caesar's support was not just a matter of survival, but a move to consolidate her power. By naming her son Caesarion, born from Caesar, the heir to the throne, she both secured Egypt's future and sent a message to the Roman people. This alliance was sealed with blood. But when Caesar was assassinated, everything became uncertain again. Cleopatra then turned her attention to Marcus Antonius. This move was not merely a new romance, it was a search for a new balance. Antony's rise to power in the East gave Cleopatra the chance to form an equal partnership with Rome. Her dream of creating an empire in the Eastern Mediterranean alongside him was one of her greatest long-term strategies. And note this, Cleopatra was never just a consort. She was a negotiator, an influencer, willing to make concessions when necessary, but always keeping control. If she shone like a goddess on stage, behind the curtain she worked as a political engineer. The power of propaganda. Fighting with image. Cleopatra built not only alliances, but narratives. She portrayed herself as the earthly embodiment of the goddess Isis, building religious power over her people. This was Egypt's cultural soft power against Rome's harsh military might. However, Augustus launched a counter-propaganda campaign to dismantle this narrative. Cleopatra was presented to the Roman public as a lustful, weakening, civilization-threatening Eastern woman. This portrayal was so effective that Cleopatra's political intelligence was overshadowed for centuries by the myth of her dazzling beauty. The shape of intelligence, flexibility, calmness, and mastermind. Cleopatra's intelligence was not one-dimensional. She was a leader who adapted her position according to circumstances, reshaping her identity as needed. Sometimes a nurturing goddess, sometimes a persuasive diplomat, sometimes a stern ruler. She never panicked in crises, never lost her way in chaos, always thinking several moves ahead. Her governance combined traditional power with modern intellect. She held influence not only in palace intrigues, but also in everyday matters, from the operation of ports to agricultural taxation. Conclusion, the real queen. Behind the scene, Cleopatra has been misunderstood throughout history because most people only looked at the spotlight. But the real power was behind the curtain. Her leadership should be understood not as a woman's story, but as the story of a state mind. Cleopatra is not just a love story, she is a story of intelligence. And today, if we still remember her name, it's not only because of how she looked, but because of how she thought. Throughout history, female leaders have often been remembered for their beauty or physical attractiveness. This is especially true for figures like Cleopatra. The legends about Cleopatra's beauty have overshadowed her real leadership skills and intelligence. However, Cleopatra was not only influential because of her charm, but also because of her intellect and strategic abilities. She was a complex and multifaceted character who left a lasting mark on history. Yet history has not sufficiently examined this side of her, and has simply reduced her success to her beauty. The comparison between beauty and intelligence is actually a reflection of human perception. Societies and historians have sometimes preferred to define powerful women either by their allure or by their intellect in order to diminish their influence. This attitude is clearly seen in Cleopatra's case. Her political maneuvers and diplomatic successes were strong enough to balance a colossal power like the Roman Empire. However, historical records have mostly highlighted her attractiveness alongside the stories of male figures like Julius Caesar and Marcus Antonius. At the root of this misconception lies the male-dominated nature of historiography and cultural biases. Male historians found it difficult to understand powerful women and, in order to minimize their power, emphasized superficial traits such as beauty. Cleopatra's true intelligence is hidden in her multilingualism, deep intellectual capabilities, and calm decision-making during crises. Her knowledge of languages was not only for communication, but also meant understanding and negotiating with different cultures and centers of power. Furthermore, Cleopatra's positioning of herself as the earthly embodiment of the goddess Isis was not mere showmanship, but a clever strategy. Through this move, she established a strong connection with her people and reinforced her political authority. In her relations with Rome, she used shrewd tactics to protect her interests and maintain Egypt's independence as much as possible. The game she played relied not only on personal charm, but also on diplomatic skills and political intelligence. History has asked the wrong question because evaluating Cleopatra only by her beauty or intelligence simplifies her multifaceted character. The truth is that Cleopatra is a figure beyond beauty and intelligence. Her story is an opportunity to question how female leaders are perceived in society and how power is interpreted. Beauty may enhance her influence, but without management skills and strategy, that influence would not last. Today, when we talk about Cleopatra, we need to assess her intelligence and leadership abilities more accurately and comprehensively. Moving beyond the superficial images history has offered us means rethinking the roles of women in history. Power is not just about appearances. Cleopatra is one of the best representatives of this reality. Her story is a powerful example showing that beauty and intelligence do not exclude each other, but can coexist. Therefore, history has asked the wrong question, because Cleopatra is a phenomenon that cannot be reduced to a single answer. In conclusion, Cleopatra's life and leadership teach us that beauty cannot surpass intelligence, because true power lies in the depth of the mind and strategic thinking. To truly understand Cleopatra's place in history, we must see her not just as a symbol of beauty, but also as a symbol of intelligence and leadership. When history begins to grasp this complex truth, Cleopatra will receive the recognition she truly deserves. Cleopatra in pop culture. Crowned goddess or tragic hero. Throughout history, Cleopatra has been one of the most compelling figures in popular culture, both for her real personality and her symbolic meanings. Her life and character have been portrayed repeatedly in works of art, films, theater plays, and literature. Each time, she has appeared with different faces, sometimes depicted as a radiant crowned goddess, other times staged as a tragic hero. Between these two opposing images, popular culture has not only reflected Cleopatra's complexity, but also shaped how societies perceive her. Cleopatra's image in popular culture largely emerges filtered through historical narratives. Roman historians focused on her allure, overshadowing her true political skills. Therefore, Cleopatra has often been remembered mainly for her beauty and love affairs. Hollywood movies have especially reinforced this perception. The 1963 film Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor, is the most famous example. In the movie, Cleopatra dazzles with her magnificent costumes, while her political intelligence and leadership qualities remain in the background. This portrayal lodged Cleopatra in viewers' minds primarily as a romantic and dramatic figure. However, popular culture has not only portrayed her as a figure of beauty and romance, but also as a tragic hero. Cleopatra's life ended in tragedy, and this tragedy has become a cornerstone of her legend. Her suicide is associated with the rise of the Roman Empire and the end of Egypt's independence. From this perspective, Cleopatra is seen as a leader who shared her people's fate. In popular culture, this image is often supported by dramatic scenes and epic narratives, allowing audiences to experience both her strength and vulnerability. Cleopatra's association with the goddess Isis has also frequently appeared as a theme in popular culture. In this context, Cleopatra is depicted not just as a human, but as a divine figure. This highlights her authority and influence over her people. However, this goddess image has sometimes led to neglecting her human side. Meanwhile, Cleopatra's intelligence and political skills constitute her real power. Therefore, popular culture's occasional superficiality has prevented it from fully reflecting her complex personality. The meanings assigned to Cleopatra in popular culture have influenced how her true position on the historical stage is shaped. People admired her beauty, but this admiration often overshadowed her genuine leadership qualities. Cleopatra is both an icon and a symbol in popular culture. These symbols cause her to be remembered for both power and tragedy. Her story is not only the life of a woman, but also a universal epic involving power, love, betrayal, and loss. In conclusion, Cleopatra has existed side by side in popular culture as a crowned goddess and a tragic hero. This duality has kept her legend alive and allowed it to be interpreted from different perspectives. To truly understand Cleopatra's real personality, it is necessary to look beyond the myths offered by popular culture. Yet these myths also reveal her timeless allure and impact. Cleopatra has been not just a historical figure, but a legend throughout history. And popular culture has further amplified this legendary aspect of her. What truly makes Cleopatra unforgettable? Throughout history, many significant figures have taken the stage, yet Cleopatra holds a unique place among them. Her name is remembered not only as that of a queen, but also as a legend. What makes her truly unforgettable is not merely her beauty or love stories, but a much deeper and more complex character. Cleopatra's impact has been interpreted in various ways over time, often reduced to superficial traits. However, the truth is that her lasting legacy stems from her leadership skills, intelligence, and strategic genius. During Cleopatra's era, Egypt was going through a politically challenging period. In such a complex and dangerous environment, it was a remarkable achievement for a woman to both secure her throne and maintain her country's independence. Her rule went beyond a simple monarchy. It symbolized a time when cultural diplomacy and political intellect came together. Cleopatra possessed profound intellectual knowledge and spoke multiple languages, enabling her to communicate effectively, both with her people and the outside world. Her relationships with great powers like Rome stand as the greatest proof of her political acumen. The alliances she formed with Julius Caesar and Marcus Antonius were not just personal affairs, but strategic moves. Through these alliances, she solidified her own position and strengthened Egypt's resistance against external threats. The way she managed these complex relations sheds light on the political understanding of both her time and ours. Cleopatra's power cannot be measured solely by military or economic means. Her true strength lay in her intelligence and diplomatic skill. Moreover, Cleopatra's self-identification as the earthly embodiment of the goddess Isis had a profound effect on her people. This symbolism was not only political, but also a form of cultural power. The loyalty and respect she commanded from her subjects grew even stronger because of it. Her leadership was multifaceted. She was not just a ruler, but also the spiritual leader and protector of her culture. This aspect contributed greatly to her unforgettable presence on history's stage. Another feature that makes Cleopatra unforgettable is her humanity. The tragic end of her life reveals that she was not just a historical figure, but a real person. Her determination, courage, and resilience in the face of adversity are still honored today. Cleopatra was not only a leader, but also a strong figure who fought against the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated world. Her story is therefore not merely a lesson in history, but also a universal source of inspiration. In conclusion, what truly makes Cleopatra unforgettable is her multifaceted personality and the profound mark she left on history. Beauty and love stories are only part of her narrative. Her true greatness lies in her intelligence, leadership, and the bond she forged with her people. To understand Cleopatra is to understand how the power of women has been perceived and interpreted throughout history. Cleopatra has been more than just a queen. She has been a legend living through centuries with both her brilliance and charisma.